Welcome to Joy, Love, and Abundance, designed to lift up and explore the people, organizations, and experiences that create a more joyful, loving, and abundant world. Join hosts Rodney Eric Lopez, Patrice Tanaka, and Cyrus Webb as they share stories and insights that will inform and inspire you. Enjoy today's broadcast.
And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Joy, Love, and Abundance. I'm Cyrus Webb, excited to be back with my friends Patrice Tanaka and Rodney Eric Lopez for another new event here on Joy, Love, and Abundance. Rodney, Patrice, hello to you, and welcome back.
Thank you. So good to be back, the three of us. Yeah.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. It's good to hear everybody's voices again.
Yeah, it is, and I definitely want to welcome our radio audience tuning in at WYAD 94.1 FM in my home state of Mississippi and WYADonline.com for those joining us around the world, as well as our affiliates through iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Amazon Music Podcasts. Glad you all could be with us as well. Well, there's been a lot happening in the world, and we typically talk a lot about that, guys, when it comes to the connection between joy, love, and abundance. But I was just sharing with you guys before we went on here, I was reading something recently, and it reminded me of the importance of ourselves. We get so, I think, impacted by what's happening in the world around us. A lot of times we don't think about ourselves and really what we can do to show joy, love, and abundance to ourselves and then, of course, by extension to others. And I thought about for myself, to kind of get it kicked off, that one of the things I try to do, which is why I think I have such peace in my life, is that I really do try to live by the golden rule of doing to others as you would have them doing to you. And I realize that means, of course, not only treating people right, but also the things I say to people. But I also thought about with myself, what I do for myself is I give myself permission to say no. I give myself permission to step away when I feel like I need to step away from something. And also just to be able to enjoy the moment. Now, we'll say I'm not the best at enjoying the moment. I'm working on that. Is a flaw of mine. Because typically I'll do something and then I'm on to the next thing. I think a lot of people can relate to that in life these days. I have taken for granted because I'm a single guy. I think, well, you know what? I don't have to worry about anybody. No one's going to be fuss at me, and I can just do what I want when I want. But I'm realizing that, the importance of that joy, love, and abundance for myself is also stepping away and give myself time to breathe and just kind of enjoy life, whatever that means at that particular moment. So I was curious for you all, how do you show joy, love, and abundance to yourself and by extension others? Patrice, this is kind of your wheelhouse, so I'll start with you. How have you managed to be able to show yourself joy, love, and abundance?
Thank you. And I love what you said about what you do for yourself to take care of Cyrus, because, a well-tended to Cyrus is important for the world, right? You can't do your best work unless you're in the best condition to give your best work. And that's how I feel about, living my life purpose every day, which is to choose joy in my life every day, to be mindful of that joy and to share that joy with others. So every day I am choosing joy and being mindful of it and sharing it with others. And if I do those three things every single day, the day is filled with a lot of joy for me. And I'm even aware of the joy that I'm experiencing, which is a problem if we're not fully conscious of, the joy that, we do experience in life. And in fact, one of my favorite explanations or definitions of joy is that joy is the experience of the preciousness of life. Joy is the experience of the preciousness of life. So it's not that every moment needs to be euphoric, but it does mean that we have to be present in every moment to extract, everything that we can get from it, sad or bad or, euphoric. It's just every moment that is what we must experience. I mean, we have to be fully present in our own lives. So I have to say that I believe that if more people were choosing joy and coming from a place of joy, that's what you would share with others, right? Because if you're full of unjoy, that's what you're going to share with other people, a lot of unjoy. And we see a lot of people doing that, right? So it's almost like a public service if we take care of our own joy so that we infect people with joy instead of the opposite. So anyway, that's where I'm coming from. And but I love this question that you came up with, Cyrus. And Rodney, let's hear from Rodney Lopez, who just came back from vacation and is in a very joyful state.
I bet, Rodney. Yeah, I'm curious to hear, Rodney. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think the obvious first answer is get away whenever you can, physically, from your environment, and certainly giving yourself the gift of a vacation. And although I was privileged and blessed to be able to go to a beautifully exotic island location, you don't have to go that far to experience that. You can do that in your own neighborhood, in your own community. You don't have to take an expensive vacation everywhere to give yourself that time. But I think that just as important as those kinds of things, is this idea of meditation. Meditation and mindfulness and meditation. These are practices that have been around for thousands of years and are coming back. I think they have increased in awareness and popularity because so many people are now teaching mindfulness meditation in a variety of places, including in public schools, to great effect. Meditation is something that I don't do regularly. It's not a regular practice of mine. I wish it were more regular, but I leave it and I come back to it at times, and I find that, when I am in a practice of meditation, that I find that it's a wonderful gift to give to myself. And about a month and a half ago, I discovered an app called Oak, and I really liked it because the guided meditations that are in there are very simple, and there's one that I was not very familiar with, which I'd heard about in probably something I read years ago, but never actually done. And it's called a loving kindness meditation. And I selected it in the app, and it was unlike some of these other mindfulness meditations that I've done in that what the voice is asking you to do is to express loving kindness to yourself, primarily by placing your hand on your heart and first thanking your heart for all the work that it's done your entire life. And I thought that was a simple but profound act, to simply put my hand over my heart and to say thank you to it for the fact that it has been beating every minute, every second of my life since I've been born. And it has worked hard for all of these years and continues to work hard for me. And just to say thank you inward to the body, the physical body that has been sustaining me, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, even though I don't always treat it well. I don't always give it good food. I don't always give it enough rest. I put a lot of stress on my body, and yet my body continues to work for me. And I think that everybody, no matter what state of health they're in, even if they have challenging health issues, right, as long as we're taking a breath, our bodies are still working for us. And so I think that a loving kindness kind of a meditation where you're simply thanking your body and being in awe of it, for all that it does for you, I think is probably one of the most important gifts you can give to yourself on a daily basis. And so I've picked that up in the last month or so and have found it to be very centering and very, very healing for me.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Rodney, what I just love about what you just said, and it's something I don't think about. Well, I shouldn't say I don't think about it. I don't give myself enough time to think about it. I think a lot of things we think about, but then we go on with our day. I'm one of these people in the morning when I open my eyes, I say thank you. just for that, for one to be able to wake up. But I love the fact of even going to the heart and thinking the heart, thinking the parts of our body that sometimes we can take for granted, quite honestly. I think that in itself definitely builds gratitude and appreciation, and I think makes us also, I would think, more empathetic toward others as well who don't have, some of the things that we sometimes don't consider enough. So that's why I love what you said so much, because that's something all of us can do. We all, maybe our lives aren't perfect, but we all have something we can be appreciative for.
I agree. I think a pastor once told me years ago, he didn't tell me specifically, he told a group of us, imagine the wealthiest person in the world, right? So whoever that is, whatever name comes to your mind when I say the wealthiest person in the world, right? And of course we can probably identify who that person is, numerically, but whatever that means for you. But imagine that person, and now imagine that person on a ventilator or on a respirator, right? Who had trouble breathing. And we don't wish that on anyone, but imagine that. Right. How much money would it be worth to that person to take an unassisted breath, to be able to breathe fully into 2 healthy lungs without the assistance of a machine? How much is a deep breath worth? Is it worth $1 million? Is it worth $100 million? Right? And so I think that was a statement that has stuck with me for years. Right? Is that even the simplest things, like a deep breath, like a beating heart, like like working eyes, whatever it is, things that we take for granted in terms of our physical health, we can stop for a moment and really express deep gratitude for. And I think in that moment we find, even if it's for a moment, we find a really greater sense of peace.
Yeah. Patrice, you do that in a really interesting way that I love, and I know those who follow you online do, and that is through your pictures you share of the Hudson. I don't know if you really know, even though I'm sure you get those messages, but how beautiful that is just to look at from day to day to day. That one place and how different it can look depending on what's happening, of course, in the water or what's happening, even when it comes to the weather. I love that. Yeah. I mean, I think, that those little things are things, again, for a lot of times we may not even really consider them. But for our audience out there who don't know, Patrice, how did you start doing that as a routine of sharing those photos from the Hudson?
Well, because my apartment has a great view up and down the Hudson, and I am, my breath is taken away sometimes when I get up and I actually look out and see, oh my God, the clouds, the sun on the water, the beautiful sailing boats, and I'm so grateful to be looking out on the water. And I'm a Cancer, a water sign, so water is very important to me. And so I take pictures of them. And, of course, I feel compelled to share them because they're so beautiful that I wanted to share the joy that I experience in just looking at the Hudson and every day and different times of day and different times of the year. I mean, it's ever changing, and to me that's just so fascinating. It's my one kind of ongoing interaction with nature. And I'll never forget what Rodney's wife said when Noni, who went, because we're Facebook friends as well, and she sees my photos, and she said her observation was that I can tell that you are fully present. And I had never thought about it that way, but I do, yes, when I'm looking out at this amazing vista, I am so grateful, and I thank God for letting me, see what I see every single day and, then experience it and then be able to share it and offer some joy to other people who might think it's beautiful as well. So thank you.
Well, we definitely appreciate it.
I have to say,
yeah.
And I just have to jump in and say, Patrice takes amazing pictures of the view of the Henry Hudson River in New York City, and she also takes really great pictures of these amazing food dishes that she
Rodney, I was thinking the same thing, Rodney. I was thinking the same thing.
Right, like these amazing meals. I'm like, wow, that's appreciation of food. Also, it's amazing.
I think we need a Patrice Tanaka book. We need a book of Food in the Hudson. That's what we need to call it, Food in the Hudson by Patrice Tanaka.
Too. Flowers is one of the basic food groups for me. But I know that, other people love food, flowers, and the Hudson. That seems to be something that we all can enjoy. So just sharing
It sounds like the makings of a great coffee table book.
There you go. There you go. You're hearing it here first, guys. I want to say for those who are just tuning in, either on the radio dial or online, you're listening to Joy, Love, and Abundance. The team is back together. I'm so glad to be back with Rodney Eric Lopez, Patrice Tanaka, and I'm Cyrus Webb. We've been talking today about how we ourselves can be able to show joy, love, and abundance with ourselves, and then to be able to, of course, by extension, share it with others. And this is the perfect group to have this conversation with. However, we want to hear from you. How are you able to show appreciation for life and to be able to show yourself some joy, love, and experience abundance? And then, of course, share that with other people. Please let us know. We would love to be able to hear that. Now it's time for the part of the show where we like to chime in on something that's caught our attention. For me, it's a book, which I'll be telling you guys about at the end of the program. But, Rodney, you had something really great that you shared with the group today. Why don't you share that with our audience about what caught your attention?
Absolutely. I'm happy to do that. There is I think anybody who is aware of the issue of criminal justice in the United States understands that it's a very big problem. Some people call it, the need for criminal justice reform. Other people use the term criminal punishment reform. The United States just has the highest incarceration rate in the world. 20% of the world's prisoners are found in the United States. And even though we spend billions of dollars a year on incarceration, I think we know that it fails at rehabilitation. Of the 600,000 people released from prisons each year, 67% of them are rearrested within 3 years, 83% within 9 years. And so recidivism is a huge problem. It's a moral problem. It's a criminal punishment problem. It is an economic problem. It is a problem on so many fronts. And so, there are a lot of smart people around the country working on this problem from a variety of different factors. But I think what lots of people agree on is that one of the biggest issues is recidivism, is making sure that people who come out of the prison system stay out and don't sort of cycle back in. And so I learned about this really interesting organization out of Charleston, South Carolina, called Turning Lease, and they really wanted to lean into to really keeping former prisoners out of the prison system once they left. They were founded in 2014, and they began along traditional ways of addressing the issue, which was, finding, employment for former prisoners, finding easy ways to get them identification, arranging transportation, employment, setting up housing. And all of those things are important and necessary to do. But what they found was that even by providing those services, that a lot of the people they were serving were winding up back in prison. And so they had to kind of go back to the drawing board and figure out what's not working here. And what they realized is that even with all of those services in place, if you're not addressing the behavioral issues and some of the psychological issues that are in play, people are not going to have the skills to remain outside because folks are going back to neighborhoods that may not be supporting their reentry. They may not be they don't have the social skill set to do that, particularly after many years in prison. And so what they realized was that they needed to do something more than just traditional social service programs. And so they leaned into a cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT for short. And essentially what cognitive behavioral therapy is, it's a way to identify and manage thoughts that contribute to emotional problems, thereby altering your behavior. And so what Turning Leaf has done is they've created a social enterprise that gives former prisoners the opportunity to work and earn a living in their social enterprise. But also, while they're doing that, because they're spending a full workday, working on this on making a living, they're also spending a significant amount of time getting CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy. And what they found is that the combination of social services and CBT is proving to be a game changer in the area of recidivism. So people are getting, in addition to working a full-time job, 150 hours of CBT in the first 10 weeks of the program. And the results are amazing. Only 22% of the graduates of their program are ever rearrested, and 84% are maintaining their employment for 6 months or more.
Wow.
And so that is an astounding rate of success. And so what Turning Leaf and other organizations like them are doing is they're advocating for more organizations to do this kind of wraparound service for former prisoners, because they feel like one without the other isn't going to have long-term success. And the more you can keep somebody from going back to prison, the better it is, not just for the life of that person and that person's family, but for the overall system. If we can keep more people in society and being well-adjusted after being in prison, it's going to help the economy, it's going to help the neighborhood, and it's going to help individual families. And so I thought Turning Leaf was an organization that I really wanted to lift up today, because that story kind of really touched me. They're really doing some good work in South Carolina.
Oh, without a doubt.
And
I think it really shows how, again, thinking about others and knowing the impact they can have on us all. I think that is that's powerful. Patrice, you also had a great one, an organization that you're with. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, and I have to say I love that Turning Leaf program, and it is a way to address the problem of recidivism while we try to have criminal justice reform, so that people aren't going to prison at that rate, and certainly not people of color being, overly taxed in that way. And which brings me to a program that I'm really excited about. It's from the Center for Asian Pacific American Women, CAPAW for short, because that's a mouthful. But what CAPAW has done, and up to this point they were focused on leadership development for AAPI, Asian American and Pacific Islander women. But given what's been going on in the past year and a half, what they've launched is a pilot program for multicultural young women leaders. And it's a group of 26 women in this pilot, AAPI women, Black women, Latina, Native American women. And they're going to be working together in this 8-month-long program, which is designed to help them to speak up and speak out, to advocate for and work towards creating more just and equitable society. So I just think the idea of women of color working together, young women leaders all focused and committed to doing the same thing is pretty powerful. And this is a pilot program, so there will be, I'm sure it's going to be successful. I hope to get a couple of women to participate in this program. And I'm really excited about the work they're doing and how they're going to expand this program going forward. So there's a lot of good work that's being done in the world from organizations like CAPAW, the Center for Asian Pacific American Women, and Turning Lease, which I just love the work that they're doing. So, anyway, this is what I'm impressed.
Yeah, two great organizations. As I mentioned, no surprise here, what caught my attention was another book. I read probably close to 400 books a year, and I do read for pleasure sometimes, but I also read because of guests that are coming on the program. Well, one book that I initially read for pleasure, and now he's going to be coming on the show, so it kind of is the best of both worlds, is Craig Melvin. Many people know him as a co-host of the Today Show, also has a show on MSNBC. When I found that he had a book coming out, I was really intrigued by it. But however, I have to be honest, when I first heard what it was about, I then thought, I don't know if I'm going to read that or not. The book is called Pops, Learning to be a Son and a Father. So I knew nothing because I'm not a person who digs into people's backstory. I didn't know nothing about his relationship with his own father, and now I'm so glad I read this book because basically what he talks about is here he has made a living covering the stories and lives of others, and he felt it necessary to share the complications of his own father-son relationship with his father. And so he dives into that, dealing with his father's vices and getting him help and being able to try to be a better son, and how that then translated then when he met his wife and they had children, then being able to be a father. And so I think, what was so interesting for me in reading the book was it really shows that a lot of times it's hard for us to be our best in one chapter of our lives if we have not addressed another chapter. And he felt like the more he embraced and got to know his father, it allowed him to better embrace himself and who he could be for his own children, and knowing what he would have to watch. And I think that is the thing. I think, it's such a powerful story, so honest, and he takes us into some horrible tragedies in his childhood that happened, but to be able to look at what he's doing now. I mean, here he is, a co-host of the Today Show, one of the most watched shows on television, hosting his own show on MSNBC, but also setting an example for sons and fathers and husbands, I guess you could say, as to who they can be, what they can overcome, and I think more importantly, what you can move past, because that's another thing that he talks about in the book, how we all have to make a decision to move past what we cannot change. And I think that is such a big lesson. So I definitely recommend it. Again, it's called Pops, Learning to be a Son and a Father by Craig Melvin. Really, really great book. Well, it is always a great time with the two of you. I really enjoy these weekly times. I know our audience enjoys them. And again, we want you guys to chime in on how you all are finding joy, love, and abundance for yourself, and then, of course, able to share that with others. I would love to hear your thoughts about that. I think I'm going to make a Facebook post about that as well. I'd love to be able to hear your comments, and maybe we'll share some of those comments next week on our broadcast. So definitely look forward to that. Patrice, any final words for this week?
No, I loved everything we talked about today. In fact, I was thinking, this is like one of my favorite shows in recent memory, just because, I don't know, thank you. Thank you, Rodney. Yep. Thank you, Cyrus.
Look, thanks to the two of you. Any final thoughts from you, Rodney?
Well, I just want to echo what Patrice just said. This is a wonderful conversation, and just to follow through on Pops and Mr. Melvin's book, I think so often we find healing of our first family stories, whether there was trauma or difficulty, whether there was a father figure or a lack of a father figure. So often we find healing and completion when we begin to parent others, whether it's parenting biological children or other people that we take on as mentees in our lives. I think there's incredible healing that can take place and completion that can take place when we start to parent someone else. And so I'm glad you wound up reading that book and being able to talk about it on the show, because I think it's an important subject.
Yes,
it really is. And it really reminds us all, too, that we all have a story to tell. I think just being able to do that is important. And I want to thank the two of you for sharing today, and thank you, our audience, for listening. Until next time, we are Patrice Tanaka, Rodney Eric Lopez, and Cyrus Webb saying we hope you will continue to be able to find joy, love, and abundance in your own life and be able to share that with others each and every day. Until next time, you all make it a great one. Take care.